Okay, everybody, I hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend. And I know all of you are very, very busy. As I promised you Wednesday night, that I would do at least one, maybe two supplemental recording lab sessions. And I want to take a look at the Bailey-Bird case. We're over here in Access, and if you have your green textbook, that's the Miller textbook, that covers the Bailey-Bird. And let's see what pages. I'm over here in the table of contents, trying to find it. It must be that database tutorial, because I'm not seeing it here. Hang on just a minute. It must be a database tutorial. So pop over to page 291, and I think that's probably where it starts. Well, that's Tamika's tanning salon. That's not what I'm wanting to do there. I mean, Bailey-Bird's is a. Oh, I'm sorry. Bailey-Bird's is that's an Excel case, so I don't want to mess with that. Okay, let's see. Let me pop down here because I want us to do some more work on some of these databases. And I'm scrolling down here. I thought I was ready to do that. All right. Well, since I said we were going to go ahead, and we've done Tamika's, and we might as well do. I think we could do that. I'm kind of trying to keep us through a variety of things, and let's see. Let me look here for just a second. We've done the work over here. Let me see what. Hang on a minute. Thanks for being patient here. I got the salon data. I think what we'll do is go ahead and work with this sauces case. And I'll take a look at it for just a second, because I think we may want to do it. Yeah, it's case 16 in your textbook, and it's the Susan's Special Sauces. I'm trying to give us a flavor of each of these database cases, and so I had forgotten that Bailey-Bird is a spreadsheet case, not a database case. So the database case we're going to look at here is Susan's Special Sauces, and it's over on page 106 in the Miller textbook. My apologies about that, a little bit discombobulated. And we'll pop over there and take a look. It's over on page 106 in the Miller textbook. And like I said before, I'm trying to give us a bit of a flavor of some of these different cases, some that emphasize table construction, some that emphasize queries, so you get a more well-rounded look at Access. So what you'll want to do, we're going to come up here to the sauces ISS, their information system solution. And let's go ahead and we'll download that. Okay, and you'll want to save it to your desktop so you can upload it. Now, before we go any further, this sauce's IS solution, okay, we're going to use it as the upload. I'll pop over here to the syllabus. And let's see here. We have these three already, what we decided we were going to upload. But if you would want to choose to upload the sauces on one of those, that would be fine. Because from here, we start to move into the group project and all that business. Well, Manila, and then we got these case quizzes. So the sauces is kind of a bonus one, and if you would prefer to upload it for any one of these, if you have not submitted, you're fine to do that. So I know this will probably end up being a grab bag of everybody, but whatever you do, I'd like to see upload three database cases. So this kind of gives you some flexibility. And the Susan Special Sauces is case 16, and it's over in the database cases. It starts at 106. This talks about doing calculated controls, informed design, relationships, report design, and queries and things of that. And they have some issues there in terms of getting their stock cake, in terms of not running out of stock. They give you a narrative involving the what's going on in the company and their issues. And they prepare batches of dressings and special sauces. A key point they make there, page 107, is that they have 2 days. And so she's concerned about her safety stock, all right? This is kind of an inventory problem. And then there are some storage specifications that are given. And if you take a look on page 108, again, I'm in the big green Miller book, you're going to see that she starts off with an algorithm or a business requirement at the very top, and that is at the minimum inventory level. The minimum amount she wants to keep on board is demand during lead time plus safety stock. Okay, so she's planning. So what she's really talking about is having a safety stock, okay, and kind of a work in process stock. Now, on the safety stock, and I've made a note to myself there, she wants 2 days of expected demand. So she's going to have demand during the lead time. Okay, that's the lead time, meaning she orders and is waiting for the order. And then on hand, she has 2 days of expected demand. Okay? So this is kind of inventory. Now, this is why I wanted to include this now. Now, if you take a look at page 108, you're going to see the table plan, the plan for the table. And as I said before, if you're going to develop a database, you almost literally have you really do need to sit down and work with a set of entity relationship diagrams. So let's go back over to the files. Okay, and let's find the sauces ISS. Okay, that's information specification. And here we go. I appreciate you being flexible with me and being understanding. You know, when I have some students who are all over the map in terms of their backgrounds with Excel, those spreadsheet tools, or with database tools, yeah, I try to give you a flavor and I try to be flexible, which is why there's been some ambiguity in what you need to upload for stuff, and some ambiguity on my part. and my wanting to make sure that I give you a good flavor of a lot of the key or repetitive kinds of things you're going to run into. Now here's the sauces solution, and this is over in the files. It's published. I've got it here on my desktop, so I'm gonna bring it back up. Okay, and let's look at this, Jewel. And of course, here's the shutter. We navigate around here. We want to get all access objects. We have a couple of tables here. Okay, then a whole bunch of queries. Okay, and even one, and then a couple of reports. So the business requirement is stated there at the top of page 108, and then you see the table. Table 1 of these are product records, and this is really I would consider it more. I would consider it basically I think basically in terms of tables. You know, we talked about data warehouse concept, the idea of dimension tables, okay, that deal with variables. We've talked about production tables that help feed into a fact table of some kind. A fact table is a table that contains measurable data, counts, or money, or something of that nature. That's why we call it a fact table, like a list of the daily sales. Okay, and then we had that data warehouse file, you remember, that was really all of that, okay, that we pull from. So we use these dimension tables, and I'm going to click above here on the top of database tools, and let's just see what's going on. Been a little bit of time since I've looked at this case, but I did want to include it. Here we are. And you can see this is a pretty simplistic tool, and let's get it arranged. And I'll talk about this for just a moment, because this is kind of this starts to approach a star schema, and this is about as simple as you can get. Notice that the product family code, that's that P family code, they have different products they produce, is the primary key over in the category table. So the category table is a dimension table, but this feeds into the product table. So it kind of also, it has it's a primitive star or a primitive snowflake schema. And if you're kind of confused on what's the difference between a star schema and a snowflake, I have some resources posted in there for you to go look at. And really what that boils down to is the use of is how normalized you want to get the data. For example, if I have a customer table, and it includes the states in which the customers come from. If I have a table called states that lists all 50 states with their two letter designation, then I really have a setup similar to this one, in that I've got a dimension table source supporting another dimension table. So this is kind of an incomplete snowflake, if you will. Again, you know, trying to design, you know, trying to make an issue, trying to deal with, what we're doing, trying to kind of work our way through the business problem. And the business problem here is an inventory issue. That's really there at the top of page 108. And you see the different the product records, okay? And so if you look over on page 105, okay, and you're going to see they have a maximum inventory level, okay? And for each of those, the expected daily demand times 6 gets you the maximum inventory level. So what this implies to me, as I look at it, and they probably give us the verbiage in the case, is that the safety stock is 2 days, okay, and they have 2 days of demand, okay, in terms of the lead time. So and so they're always working. They always have another 2 of them on incoming. So they have basically they want to have 6 days of inventory in some state now. And this is kind of a rolling inventory situation. So if you look, for example, at product 1, the extra creamy ranch dressings, page 108 in the Big Green Book, you'll see the expected daily demand is 25. The maximum inventory level is 150. Now, where you get the 6 days is this, is you have 2 days of expected demand, okay, for safety stock. You have 2 days of demand, okay, and then you have 2 more days apparently incoming. All right, and that's where you get that expected daily, the maximum inventory level. So it appears you've got 2 on the floor. You've got 2 days of expected demand in safety stock. Then you've got enough on the floor for 2 days of demand, and then you've got 2 days for inbound. All right. So and so you're. And again, if any of you who work in inventory understand, you have stock on hand, then you have safety stock, and then you have stuff in progress or inbound. Okay, and that's this. As I've read this case and over the few years I've taught this course and used this book, that seems to be what's going on here. Because if you take a look, you get expected daily demand. And then you take that times 6. Now, we look at this at page 109, and you're going to see a product table structure, okay? And this is really this is very much like a dimension table, okay? And you can see they've got the field name, the data type, field description, field size, comments. Notice they've got the product number, the product name, a product family code, category, okay, quantity on hand, and the selling price, the cost, the minimum inventory level, daily demand, and maximum level. So this is kind of a mixed bag. Table 2 is in terms of being a fact table plus a dimension table. And again, people will design tables to their needs, or they will design them just based on how they're thinking about things. And that's not always that. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's not so good. Now you can see if you have, as you can see, I have the Access database open, and you can see a lot of times in the reports and you'll see what's on, what the designer is thinking about, and you hope that the designer that the designer is thinking about business requirements. And it's obvious they don't want to run out of stock. They want to manage their inventory. Okay, that's an obvious case. Then now over on, as they walk you through, and we'll take a walk through the case for just a minute here. You have Susan's special sauces, and again, then you have table 3, a category table structure, okay? And then you have a table of category records, and we have a couple of other databases. Then you see over on page 111, okay, 2 forms, okay? And that's that category form right there, and that form for products, all right? Now, let's start at the bottom of 111. They begin with the information specifications and the development of a weekly report and it's over there on page 113. Which products have a unit profit margin less than $2? A whole series of queries, okay? And so we'll take a look at those. Let's, we see the relationship here, and again, we have a one-to-many relationship. In other words, many product families can be, will be listed in here. And we have a product number, which is a key, all right? And then we have the description. Now, if you click on this right here, just click right here on the it shows the relationships. Sooner or later, I'm going to get this right. Trying to find out the type of join we've got. It's a one. There it is. Edit relationship. I'm sorry. This is a. This uses an inner join. I'm sure. Yeah. Now let's talk about this for just a minute. The table on the left is what's known as the parent table. The one on the right is what's known as the child table. Okay. Both tables that I'm showing you here have primary keys, so that every record is unique. Okay. The table category, this one, is really more like what I would call a dimension table. Now you say, why do you keep talking about these dimension tables, production tables, fact tables? Because it's this notion of a warehouse. Okay. Think of it like I carry all kinds of products, and then I have different brands of that product, okay, or different sizes. Databases tend to reflect the physicality of a company, physically or the mentality of how stuff's ordered. And these people have products. They have different types of products or product families. Okay, and they're concerned about quantity. They're concerned about unit net revenue, because you get a selling price and product cost. You can see that over here in the table of product. Okay, so when we look at this edit relationships, we see that the parent table's on the left. The related table or query is on the right, and you say, can we have two queries related? Certainly, you can do that. You can relate two tables, you can relate two queries, or you can relate a table query to a table. So you got three different ways you click. Now, in this, they're saying enforce referential integrity, which means the records must match. Now, let's click on the join type, and we'll talk about this for a minute. When we look, the reason that the join properties is important, and again, you're getting a look here, and one of the valuable things about what we're doing here is you're getting to see the back office operations, what a database administrator does to take what you think you need to know and put it into a database that can store and retrieve the information that you want. Answer those information questions that you have on a periodic or regular basis, as well as giving you those what-if opportunities to just plumb the database and mine it and see if there's something that you missed. Okay, and this join property number one is a classic intersection. I know we're back here. Building logic. I understand. You have two sets, set A and set B. The intersection is where they match up. The second one, okay, is what we call a right join, where we get everything in the parent table and then anything that matches in the child, okay? And then, of course, a right join is where I get everything in the child table and anything that matches with the parent table. And these are three different search strategies or three different retrieval strategies based upon your needs. Okay, the whole point of this is, if you think about it, an intersection, a left join or a right join, you're always excluding some information. You're excluding the information that you don't need, that's irrelevant, or you don't need to use it or see it right then. Okay? And as I talked with you before about databases, how they changed. The databases originally had pointers. So when you worked with a database, you wrote code that pointed to a physical address on the computer. And then you pulled that data up, and you literally were creating a new table when you ran a query. That all changed with object-oriented programming, because when we run a query, we take a snapshot. Okay, so it's like you take a snapshot of your car. All right, the car will. You might change the tires on the car. You might have it painted or whatever, but you have a snapshot of what it looked like at one point. Okay, and if you want to update it, you go back and take more photos, or your house or anything like that. That's that whole concept. And so what gets saved in the query is, or people use the term view instead of query, is the code, to call it. Okay, because you get a peek at the database, what's there. Now, when we've been working here in these cases, we've been working on access. We've been working at what we call the super administrator level. That is, I can do anything and everything in the database. And this is to enable you to see the back office part, so you can communicate more intelligently with IT people. Or if in some situation you need to develop your own little database, you can do so. Now, most of you will be working with queries and running queries at the end user level. So you'll just be, when we've been in the design view of these queries, as you recall, and we put in criteria on business. That's really the level probably all of you will be working at. And the question will be is, you'll have regular kinds of queries that you'll run, okay, in terms of the ongoing business entity. And then you'll have those, what I call what if or serendipitous kinds of queries, where the boss will say, well, what if, tell me about so-and-so, because I'm curious about how do these line up. Now, I want to encourage you, okay, again, to understand something very important. And when I teach in the database administration class, I teach, okay, with the undergrads, where we do nothing but database administration. We do nothing but, and we end up writing code and so forth. I emphasize to them, okay, that you want the data that you want, and especially when you're running a serendipitous query, okay, there's some reason that you're doing that. Something has provoked your curiosity, okay, and so this is and then of course ultimately this flows into dashboards and dashboards that are really the foundation for what we call business intelligence, okay, and using and having tools that let us monitor the inside of the company, what's going on, and we can use them also to monitor the outside. Okay, so you can see these relationships. Now, when I've taught logistics in the past, I would tell people, your logistics are a physical expression, okay, of how you conceptualize your business. Well, a good example would be take a distribution company. They conceptualize that they collect stuff and then they distribute it. And they want to do that in the most efficient way possible. Okay? The airline industry, for example, originally had this notion that, you know, air travel, as people started flying in the 60s and 70s when it became affordable, or before the 1960s and 70s, flying somewhere was really for the upper middle class or for the rich. And my first flight, they came by and the people, well, Rogers sent a station wagon to pick us up at our house. When you loaded guy got out and loaded our luggage, you know, everybody's dressed up with Stealing Rose out in California. You know, over there we had a meal and it was very, you know, everybody's dressed up. It was an elegant thing because air travel was still, you know, a ritzy deal. Now, you know, it's like riding in the subway, basically. And so as they grew, the airlines moved away from flight as a convenience / luxury experience to we're a hub and spokes kind of thing. But now they're trying to have a hybrid of that by having a business class and all that. Okay, so it's a conceptualization. That's why I've said, you know, if you're going to design a database, that's why you want to look at some of these. You can open them up and take a look at the database report. And that literally means you sit down and you take a piece of paper, you draw one box that says, here's all the stuff I ought to have, here's the primary key, here's the next box, so the table, and here's where I make that primary key in the first table, a foreign key in the second table, and the kinds. That literally is almost like a storyboard if you're going to do it right. Well, that being said, it just depends upon your information strategy, and what you're trying to do is economize, I guess, if you will, in terms of the amount of work you have to do to get the information you want. And again, IT is, as I said before, is decision centric. Well, we'll close this off. Okay, we can see the relationships in the two tables, and I'm going to close this for a minute and I will, well, I don't care about saying change. Let's click on the database documenter and click on that for a minute. Okay, and you can see we've got data on the tables, and we can choose both of them. And let's just click OK, and it will give us to see the report. Okay, now I'm going to expand this up. This is what I'm talking about. Let me put this all the way in here, and you can see, okay, the properties in that table, how many records. Then here are the columns and the field type and the size. Okay. This is literally, you know, a report that you can generate. Again, like I said, you know, we're working at the database administrator level. Well, we're looking here, and we're kind of we were starting to get a flavor of this company, and we start with these information specifications. You remember I told you about the queries and the two types of queries. Yep. The periodic or regular, just monitoring the business, and then you get the serendipitous queries. And a typical laundry list of periodic queries is there on page 113, okay, right below figure 4. Well, let's look at this first query here for a moment, and this is the low in stock report, okay, and we'll open it up. And here we have the name of the product and its number, okay, and the quantity on hand, and the minimum level of inventory and the maximum level of inventory. And if you go back and let's take a look there, and we'll find that extra creamy Italian dressing, that's product number 2. And I'm looking over here at table 1 on page 108 in the textbook. We can see that the expected daily demand is 25. The maximum inventory they have here, maximum inventory level, is 210. So that's the extra creamy Italian. Okay, so they're figuring they sell 35 cases of this stuff a day. Now let's go into the design of this query. Click on it, right click on it, and we'll go to the design view. Okay, and we can bring this shutter down a little bit, and we can see here that we're running this right off of the product table. And if you look over here on the quantity, you'll see here's a criteria, and this says equal. This is a Boolean operator. It says equal to or lesser than minimum inventory level. Okay, and that's the quantity on hand. All right. So we want to say we want to identify if it's at the criterion, and we list it out if it's equal to or less than the minimum inventory. So this is why it's called the low in stock report, because on that criterion. Okay, and there it is. And just to make it a little easier for you to see, I'll take it, put it here in a notepad. Well, I thought I copied it. Maybe I didn't for just a second. Probably did. See, and let's see here. I didn't. Okay. Now, an important thing here is that you have to make sure when you use a criteria, okay, that you put in the first of all the correct Boolean operator, okay, and then you also use your brackets, and then you put in the name of the field exactly how it is spelled or put into exactly how it's spelled. Now, you've got min inventory level. That's all one, like the letters are all contiguous, and you've got them within a bracket. Otherwise, if you didn't have that, you'd get you're gonna wind up with with some type of parameter error. Okay. So we've got the query. So we've got that criterion there, and let's say this. We're gonna look at the view. Now notice something. If you look up in the top left hand, you're gonna see we talked about breadcrumbs and documentation. Now, like any good piece of software, this one's giving you some breadcrumbs. It's telling you the report you're working with. It's telling you the tables, or the table and the fields, and if you want to run that query, or if you just want to do a view, okay. And we're just going to click on the view, and here is the report. Okay. Now, if we wanted to do anything else with this, let's go back to design view, and we've got this minimum inventory, the quantity on hand, and I want to sort it in descending order, ascending order. Okay. Now it will do that by default. Let's just see what we get here, and here we are. So we started with the lowest quantity on hand and worked our way up to the highest. And you say, well, why did you do that? Why? I think it's pretty obvious. If you're concerned, then you want to know, what do I need to get in here first? Okay? And if I wanted to modify this query, then it's simple. I create if I know what I need to order, okay, to maintain minimum inventory level, then I'm going to need to order 56 more units of more cheese plates to get to that minimum inventory level. And so I've got some I could create I could perform an operation or a mathematical expression in here in the design view to do that. If I had 5,000 of these, or if even 500 of them, I'd throw this into Excel and then work with it in a in a pivot table. So I think that gives you a sense of where we can go with this and what they're trying to get at here. Again, they're focusing on making sure they don't run out. Okay, we'll close that query off. Okay, and here's another one. Okay, and let's go to the design view on it. Okay, and this is the minimum inventory level. Okay, and this is where it's greater than the minimum inventory level is greater than 150, the quantity on hand. Okay, now let's look at that. And any product where the minimum inventory level is 150 units or more, okay, we want to list that out. Why? Well, these are going to be big orders. Let's put it like that, okay? And so you're trying to balance off order cost versus holding costs versus the cost of being out of stock. Now, if you've had an econ course, you probably learned a little bit about economic order quantity. And economic order quantity is basically a formula that says I'm trying to minimize total cost, okay, by minimizing my holding cost and minimizing my cost of ordering, okay. And the variable cost there is the holding cost. The cost of ordering is it mimics a fixed cost. If you put an order together, it's going to cost the same to do it, regardless of the quantity. So that mimics a fixed cost. The variable cost is handling the stuff, and that's like a classic variable cost will differ by the amount of stuff you're dealing with. Okay, so here we're looking at the other end, the minimum inventory of 150. So we know what we need to, what we're going to have to order on our particularly big orders. Okay, now, and this is I think this is for question number 5 on those information specification questions, and we'll look at this is which products have a minimum inventory level greater than 150. So that on page 113, question number 5, that's the answer for it. Okay. Now we'll just go down the level. We'll just go down the list of them. Here's question 4. We'll go to design view for it. Let's open up, and we got the table product. And here in this case, on question 4, and here's the thing, is you'll often get, when you're at work, you're going to get requests if you're working with a database system or you're working with CIS, SAP, or something like that, and you're going to have a laundry list of things that will come to you from your boss, okay? Or maybe if you're dealing with a customer, try and organize them a little bit, but you may not be able to. And this is a case where, you know, we're kind of all over that. Because now we're talking about production costs. This is our question 4. Look at what they say. Which products cost more than $3 a unit to produce? And then for each product, include the product name, number, and production cost. Other fields should be included. So we've got anything that's greater than 3 is listed there. Now, I have a confession to make you. I don't know. It's been a while since I really read this case intensely to figure out why, okay, $3 is such a big deal with him. But for some reason, $3, okay, $3 is a key performance indicator, a KPI, in terms of their production costs. And so they're interested in knowing anything that costs more than $3.50. Now, if you look on page 113 there in the green book, and I hope you're doing that and following me along, because I'm going to keep referring to this, okay? So you ought to have this, be watching this, and have your book out. If you look, there's a pay on specification question number 3. I'm working backwards from 5, 4, 3. You'll see which products cost Ms. Giovanni less than $2.50 a unit to produce. So there's a range there of $3 to $2.50. $3 is the ceiling, $2.50 is the floor. So this is they're not only concerned about inventory level, they're interested about production cost. Okay, so you see inferred here a floor and a ceiling. That's why I told you before, if I can go and plumb through somebody's database, I can tell you almost anything about it, because databases are physical expressions, i.e. digital, but still physical, of a company's priorities, its mindset, what it thinks about, you know. The kinds of criteria that get applied will tell you something. So this is number 4. They want to know anything that costs more than $3, anything that costs less than $2.50. So there's a floor and a ceiling that's implied here. And you'll see that when we open up this query number 3. I'll go to design view, and you say, you keep going to design view, yes. And when I'm talking about the graphic user interface level, okay, this is drag and drop. You can input some criteria, and the picture is different. But if you're working with SAP, CIS, or any proprietary database at the end user level, you're going to have this same thing. You're going to have some way to do drag and drop, to insert criteria, etc. And believe me, behind all of this very simple looking picture is hundreds of millions of lines of code. If I'm not mistaken, and I've said this before, I think Microsoft has, I think they have somewhere in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the range between 5,000 and 10,000 employees who do nothing but work full-time on Microsoft Office Suite. Can you imagine that? 10,000 people who do nothing but, and that's why they're so easy to use and they're so seamless. My data administration students get very frustrated with me as we get down to the end of the course, because once they learn some SQL, which is pretty easy to learn, and they start figuring out, you know, some queries are easier to do in the design view, some are easier just to write, but they begin to understand the syntax. They get a little frustrated because I make them do a lot of repetition of that, but I think that's, you know, it's how you learn the language and how you get a comfort level. But by the end of it, they start to understand, you know, how to communicate effectively with the IT people, and especially those with the database. Now, If you want, we can go down to the SQL level. I can go out up here in the far left, or I can click on the tab. It doesn't matter. I can navigate your way. Let's look at the SQL. Okay, and I tell you what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy all of this and put it on a copy it and put it up here on a notepad. And here's the language. We're going to select from the table product. The table is on the left-hand side, dot product name. You said, this sounds suspiciously like okbu.edu. Yep, same concept. Okay, that's why I said this is like rather than having physical pointers. Okay, where here you have objects. Okay, objects, i.e., iconic or code-based representations. And when you do that, then it's easy. Yeah. When you take a photo, okay, you can scan it. You know, you can put it on and you can copy it. Okay, so and then distribute it. The same way with the database. So the table product, the table's on the left hand. The right hand of the dot is the field. And then this machine is so stupid that she says, okay, select this from this table, and it says, now again, from the table product. Then you add a conditional statement, where, which is pretty typical kind of a query. This is probably 95% of all queries are like this, where we put it and we input a criteria. Okay, and then we ended up with a semicolon, and we're good to go. So we'll go back up to the view, and there it is, and that's all of them that have a product cost of less than $2 a unit to produce. Okay, so when I look at this, and over the years as I've taught this course and I've used this textbook, I like this textbook because it gives you a flavor. I particularly like it. The Excel, I know that many of you sat through some of these sessions when we did Excel and we kind of took the yawn and said, well, I've done this before. But I frankly doubt there are too many of us who've worked this much with databases, at least from this this side of the fence. You've probably used at work, probably used databases all the time, and you had a dashboard, you ran reports, you looked at stuff, and you may not have been seeing it. Okay. Hopefully now you'll see that and you'll understand it. But that ceiling and floor are telling us something there in terms of some implied elasticity in the pricing, because you'll carry that back down to the cost. So here's the cost. Okay, table with that. Okay. And that's information query number 3 goes off. So again, 543, and then they gave us and the number 2 is which products have a unit profit margin equal to or greater than $2. So we want to look for those that have a greater than 2. I think this is it right here. Yeah, there's Q2. Let's open it up. Now these have a unit profit margin of greater than $2. So you remember earlier when we were talking about that, if you look there, $3 as a ceiling, $2.50 per unit to produce. So we had two different, we want to know which ones cost more than $3. Okay, which ones cost more than $2.50, and now we're looking at a unit profit margin. Which ones have a unit profit margin for $2? And that's question number 2 there, page 113. And then we get finally to the first question, and that is which ones have a profit margin. less than $1. And one of the things I like about this case also is the authors are showing us how to name a query, okay? And you'll notice they use QRY, meaning query, and then they use UPM, okay, which will tell us about the unit profit margin. And then they have Q1, Q2, Q3. These are people who, like me, worked on databases when you didn't have icons like you have here. You had to identify it as such, because we didn't have an iconic picture like you have. Yeah, this is all so simple because there are people who have written hundreds of millions of lines of code to give us these physical representations, these icons. And so here's question 1. And these are the profit margins that have, these are the products that have a unit profit margin less than 150. Okay, so we've gone through all of those specifications. Okay, now we had the low in stock report. Look at that again. Saw the criteria. And then we do our weekly inventory report. And let's open that up. And this shows us, now let's just go down to the design view. And here's where we've used those two tables that are tied together to generate this query. Okay, and we want to know, here's the weekly inventory report. Okay, and let's pop up to the view level. And to make this a little more useful, let's go back into the design view. I'm going to go back in there and on the inventory report. On quantity on hand, now it's by default it's in ascending order. So let's see that. Well, that's odd. Let's go back to the design view because we didn't put any criteria in there. Let's go ahead and do that. It should give it by default. Oh, here. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Here's the culprit. Over under description, they've got that in ascending order, i.e., it's an alphabetical order. Okay, which looks pretty, which looks nice, but isn't too fantastic. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and put in we're going to make this a multi-criteria. Quantity on hand, we're going to put in ascending order. So we'll end up with the products in ascending order. And we're kind of grouping it now. So let's see what we got here. Here we go. Now, here we can see we've got barbecue sauce, for example. And I've got barbecue sauce, so that's nice. And I've done a grouping here, okay, that's implied by description. All the barbecue sauce, the dressings, the pasta sauce, the salsa, and the steak sauce. And if you look, you're going to see the quantity on hand is in ascending order for each of them. Okay? So now, one of the things about all query engines, whether you're running something like Access or an Oracle, SAS, SAP, any of them, all databases are designed that when you do multiple criteria, it works from left to right if you're in a graphic user interface, or it works from first criterion then onward. And if you go into the view, and then let's go back into the SQL view. okay? And notice the inner join, and then order by category and by quantity. So it started by description, and literally, it is literally, description is the first criterion, so it's applied. The machine is as smart as you are, okay? All of your students here, you are aware of and use a banner, or have heard about banner when you enroll. I remember I was in a faculty meeting, and somebody said something about banners, kind of a pejorative statement, and I said, well, you have to be smarter than the software. And that's really the truth. He didn't like it when I said it, but he had it coming anyway. But I'm being a little naughty. But, hey, the machine is methodical. It will do what you tell it to do. So garbage in, garbage out, which is why the 5 questions that are listed there in 113 should be very carefully thought out, and they have some implications, okay, about unit costs and inventory levels and so forth. So this is a nice little case. I'm going to close this off now, and I'm going to save that. I'll close this other one, and I'll save that, okay? And we've looked at all of the queries. Let's go ahead and take a look at the forms, because there's some things about them we can look at. Now, let's go ahead and open it up. And as I mentioned before, well, this is an OBU green and gold, isn't it? And now, you'd want to do something with it. So let's click on the layout view, and let's see if we can get the color of the shading. It's not going to do that for us. I think we're going to have to go into not the layout. Let's go back and right click it, and let's go to design view, okay? And click in here to fill the back color. That is just, it's nasty. You can't see it. Well, let's try a lighter green. That's even worse. Let's back out of that one. I probably did this and loaded it in thinking it was cute to put it in green and gold, which makes it terribly difficult to read. But let's look at this form and learn a little bit more. Let's go back up to the form view. As we said before, you can use a form. A form is designed to put data into a table. Now, if I want to know what this depends on what, or what I did, or what it depends, or what is depends on it, I can do an object dependencies. I click on database tools. And this is the form category. Objects that depend on me, there are none. Objects that I depend upon is a table category. You see, this sounds odd because I thought that you fill out the form to complete the table or update or put in new data, update the table through the form. True, but the form springs from the table, okay? And I know that's, you can't have something for nothing. So when you're there, you create. The easiest way to do it is typically in a graphic user interface like this is create the table, then go create the form, okay? And then I want to see a little bit more about forms. So let's click on that. And let's go to the layout view. Layout view is where I can do some formatting and that type of thing. And then let's go down to the design view. Okay. And I'm going to put this out here. Now, if you click right here, okay, and let's click on properties, you're going to see that this is called a label. You see the little property sheet over here? if I click here and I click on properties, this is a text box. Typically what you'll find in any form is a label, okay, and then what we call an unbound text box. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to look at, I'm going to click on build an event, and I can build a macro into it, whatever I want to do here, okay? And I'll look at the properties of it. Let's look at the form, and we'll scroll this out so you can see. And then any data that it controls. Notice the control source is the primary family code. And if you want to change it, you see the three dots, click that, and you choose, and you put in an expression if you care to. In the format, and in input mass, etc. Then on the event, this tells you when are we going to do something. It's on the click, and then any other data, any other information about this unbound text box. And they call it an unbound text box because you can use the text box to create commands, linkages, and do all types of things, which is a little bit beyond this course. Really is more for a course of VBA. And if there's some of you who should decide to take learn VBA and Access or no VBA and Access or Excel, it's fantastic because you can really tailor what you want to. If you're like me, or 99% of the rest of the human race, we'll be given something and we may not say anything at all unless it's just not giving us the information that we need. Okay? And so we've kind of looked at those. So let's go ahead and we'll close that thing off. Okay. And now let's go down here to a report. Now I think I've mentioned this to you before. If I haven't, let me mention it again. I hate the report format in Access. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I think it's a clunker. I think it's hard to work with. Let me show you why. Let's take this jewel up. Now, you can see, all right, that the space you have to work with is very limited, okay? And Access reports are a booger if you have a whole bunch of fields to work with, because you end up with multiple pages where you end up cramming things together as much as you can. Now, this is not bad. And you can notice a report. It's nicely designed. It starts, notice the changes in the fonts, just like we did in Excel. We lead the we guide the reader down. Then we have a table. Okay? Now, this object, just like any other, I can right click and I can go to the layout view. So, oh, this sounds a whole lot like a form. Yeah, it is very much. You can see how constricted it is. Okay. Now, if I wanted to move this, if I needed to add in another field, I could just simply do this. Now, here I'm going to have to click on it and I have to go back home. Now, I have to find wrap text, where that is in here, so I can get it to get the text to wrap. Otherwise, I'm back to moving this out. Let's see if I need more space. Design view lets me do this. This over some. You can see how tedious this gets. So I'm spending, you think, well, this is not quality time, is it? No, it's really not. So you can see, why, I don't, it's just tough, okay? Here's my advice to you. If you're dealing with a whole bunch of columns, i.e. Fields, take the query, run the query, okay? Now, if you have a really nice, expensive database system you're working from, it will probably produce you some very pretty reports. But if you're not, run the query, okay, get your results set, and throw it into and do a screenshot, for example, and put it into Word, or put it into Excel and then go from there. I say I'm giving reports a bad name. I understand that, because Microsoft just, their feeling is, my hunch, that we've got Word, you've got PowerPoint, you can embed this thing, you can take this report, you can throw it over into Word and do all kinds of things with it, make it a little bit better. So I'm not going to dwell a whole lot on that. I will do this if I click on the design view. Okay. If I want to, I can change. You'll see I've got product name and the page. These are headers. These are the labels. Here are the fields, the detail. These are the data. And then here's the footer. And notice it uses an expression there. Now I'm going to click on this product. Here's an expression. Okay, I'm going to scroll this out for you so you can see the expression that's built in here. I think the authors are all hepped up about having you see this anyway. And it's going to be easier to see it in properties. Okay. And if you look up here in the right hand, you're going to see the control source, and that is the data that you're going to get. I'll close this off, and we'll click on the properties of this. And the authors want to walk you through control sources and look at all that. It's a fancy way of saying what numeric data, okay, or categorical data did you get into your report? That's all it is, because the data that you want controls the field. The data that you want controls controls the report. So I use that term. And down here you'll see here's one of these. You probably, if you've worked in Word and done pagination, or you've worked in Excel, you've done pagination. Here's some pagination code, if you will. And that's really all that's going on there in that case with Susan's special sauces. And here's a weekly inventory. See again, you got to be, I don't know how many pages they've got on this thing. 2 pages. See, this is what makes me crazy, because you got 2 pages. Now, I think it's well designed enough. Let's make that fill out the whole thing. We can. And we'll go back to page 1. Now they've got this organized by product. Really, this is based on that query, the weekly inventory report query. And you say, how do you know? Well, I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to click on the weekly inventory report, and I'm going to click check on object dependencies and objects that I depend upon, and it's from this and objects depend upon me, and I'll bet there it is. See, this is again a database documentation, a breadcrumb that lets me see where's the data flowing to from this. Where does it come from? That's why when we build the tables, record numbers are so important, unique records, and we do normalization. Well, folks, again, this is Susan's special sauces. This was case 16 over there in the Green Miller book, and I'm going to close this off for a minute. Remember we got sauces. This was the ISS. Okay, there's a second one, TYD solution. Okay, and I will probably look at it for another supplemental workshop, so we can have worked through that database case. Okay, I've been on here a while. I thank you, appreciate you. This is a supplemental workshop for the 30th, and I hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend. God bless y'all, and I will see you on Tuesday night when we'll live stream, and we'll look at where we are in the course and all kinds of things. Thank you much. Have a good one. So I'm going to stop the share and then stop the recording, and we'll go from there.